Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today, we have a special guest on the show. We're joined by Yvette Cameron, Senior Vice President of Global HCM Product Strategy at Oracle. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. I'm really happy to be here with you today.
Thanks for joining us. And we were speaking beforehand that you have the best hotel internet connection of all time. So let's hope it works. let's hope it works throughout the whole episode as well as a caveat for everyone. But joking aside, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and your journey to where we are now, Oracle.
Wow. And how long is this show, Chris?
Yeah, like 30 to 40 minutes. So we'll be all right.
I have been in this space for a very long time. I originally started my adult career wanting to be a math teacher and somehow ended up here in the HR and HR technology space, which is interesting because math and HR, historically wasn't a great fit.
Now it's a perfect fit.
And now it's a perfect fit, right? Everybody's into artificial intelligence and metrics and measures, and I love it. I love it. This is like my time has come. My journey has been a long one, right? I was an HR practitioner for 12 years in the healthcare space, and I was running comp and benefits and administration and HRIS. And then I moved into the technology world, starting with PeopleSoft, and moved into other companies. I worked at niche vendors. I worked at major vendors. I've boomeranged 3 times.
Really?
How's that for a journey? So I would leave a company, try some different things, and then come back to that company, go to another company, go back to an old one. So actually, I've just returned to Oracle. If you know, Oracle made an acquisition of PeopleSoft back in 2004, and I started my HR tech career in PeopleSoft. So essentially, this is yet another boomerang for me. I left Oracle, and then I came back many years later. So I'm loving it. I will say throughout all of that, probably 25 plus years, I've also served as an industry analyst. I have served as my own founder of my own companies. Right before Oracle, I co-founded a small technology startup that was focused on building the Internet of Careers.
I saw that. Platform. That was really interesting. When I saw that, I was stalking you a bit on LinkedIn like I normally do before the show. And I thought that was fascinating, by the way, the organization. Tell everyone a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, it's a natural extension. My whole life, I've been focused on individuals and empowering individuals. And so when I was at PeopleSoft, it was about self-service and empowering people. And over time, and as technology evolved, in the last probably 7 or 8 years, blockchain emerged, and the ability for individuals to have agency over their data. Why is my data locked in health systems? Why is my data locked in government systems and employer systems? And, laws have emerged over time, starting in Europe, where you have the right to take your data with you. And what did that look like? A printout on a piece of paper, or back in the day on some CD drive. And it's totally not usable. So prior to starting Oracle, co-founded this organization, building a common blockchain platform that organizations could use to exchange career credentials. The goal was to have an industry-wide platform, not something that we're competing, every company building their own, but having an industry base on, just like we all use the internet, right? Nobody owns the internet, but we build applications and services on top. And that was the vision of Velocity, the Velocity Network Foundation. Today, I think there's over 40 members of this foundation iterating and trying out, how does blockchain work to secure my credentials, my skills, and put them into my digital wallet so that I can share them with employers, et cetera. And the one story, Chris, really quick, and this is a much longer introduction than you wanted, but imagine, when you go into a bar and you have to prove you're over 21, you pull out your driver's license and they can see your birth date, but they can also see your address and your weight, color of your eyes. What business is that of the bars to see that? All they need to do is validate and know an authoritative source said that this is your birthday. So that's the concept of digital identities, and having in your wallet, in your digital wallet, and secure. Only share the information that you need to share with others who need to view it. If you're sharing and applying for a job, show the information that's needed for that job, not all the other things that are unrelated to that job. So it's a really cool concept. So my focus, to come back to your story, has been on the individual, and whether it was at different companies as a tech provider or in my own companies or in the analyst world, I'm always looking at how do we really drive more value and support and service to individuals so that the individuals in turn can provide more value and support to their customers. And with that, Oracle and I came together recently again, and now I'm heading up the product strategy organization for the Cloud HCM division, work with a brilliant set of people on my team, bringing new capabilities, new innovation to the market, and supremely happy. And I'm one of those stories where I got a job during the pandemic, right?
Yeah. One of the exciting things, you've just, releasing the new AI at Work report, something which has been ongoing. For those that aren't aware of it, why has Oracle decided to go on this journey? Tell everyone a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So we have just completed the fourth in a series of annual surveys where we're exploring the intersection of people and technology at work. How does it affect your motivation, your mental health? How does it affect your career? Last year's results were super interesting. It really focused on the role of AI in supporting mental health and the preferences of individuals, how AI, is able to really serve particular needs. And frankly, it was interesting. More people saying that they wanted to talk to robots than people
about their mental health. Yeah, right? that was that was the thing that surprised me too. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. But as you got under the covers, it actually became a natural thing. So this year's survey, again, exploring that intersection, but we really were asking the question, what is the impact of the pandemic and on people? How are they feeling, and the impact on career, and what's the opportunity with technology? And again, we found some very, very interesting results. We were able to see also some trends from last year to this year in mental health and how people feel about it. But again, some really interesting results from this survey. So super exciting, the fourth in a series. And out of it comes a lot of insights into how people are feeling now 2 years into the pandemic, what their new point of view is on work and what they're expecting from employers. And I will say the game has changed for employers. What people wanted from work has fundamentally changed from pre-pandemic to today. And it's an absolute call to action for employers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the numbers that I've kind of come across were really surprising. I saw that 88% of people said that the meaning of success has changed for them since the pandemic, what success looks like. And that was really interesting.
Yeah, so 93% of people spent the last year kind of reflecting on the pandemic and the impacts. And, we think 2020 was an incredibly hard year, but what we found is 2021 was even tougher. And out of that reflection, as you said, 88% of people came back and said the meaning of success for them has changed. And the top indicators of success now that came across was a focus on mental health, the ability to have a flexible work environment, and having, did I say work-life balance? Actually, work-life balance was the first. So
I felt it's work-life blend. I don't think there is such thing as a balance anymore.
and you're right, it is a blend, right? Because we spent the last 19 months turning our lives upside down on a dime, right? We made offices out of our kitchens. We learned to put our dog on the outside, and our kids, learned how to do this when they look through the window to see if you're on the phone so they wouldn't come in. 3-year-olds.
Even literally, by the way, my 3-year-old will even say, "Mummy's on a work call." She's free. Yes. She understands when mummy has headset on, and she's very quiet. She goes in the living room, sits down and plays quietly. And I'm like, you're free, but you understand exactly what's happening right now.
it is phenomenal. And I use that word because I was talking to somebody and they said the same thing. Their 3-year-old will come to their little French doors in their office and look through and make this thing. Are you on a call? And it's amazing.
Amazing.
So we've upended our lives, but now as we're being asked to go back to work, employers are saying, we're going to have you come back this many days and you got to be in the office. And people say, wait a minute. I turned my life upside down to keep your business running. Where's the we've got a give and take relationship. You've taken, where's the giving? So now they understand, the importance of that work life and that blending. And they're now asking, yes, I want to come back to work, but I have higher expectations. I expect more flexibility. I expect career growth. But right now, 70% of people are saying they feel stuck in their careers, in large part because they don't know what opportunities are available to them from their employer. Their companies are not communicating and making those things transparent, right? They go to their manager who's focused on what work are you doing? Are you back in the office? So the expectation here from the employers is mismatched with the demands and new expectations of the workforce. And that's part of what we're showing it. And then I guess the question is, so what do we do about it, right? How do companies overcome that mismatch in expectations that they have and what the employers have? And we did find, again through the survey, that people are looking for more intelligence, automated systems to drive and help them through that process.
Mm-hmm. And to the data on that point, I was actually surprised, I'll be honest, when I saw that 85% of people want technology to help them define their future. That's a big number. I asked this to my team, and we kind of all sat there for a minute. We're like, in a way, it already does. Technology defines everything that we already, whether we know it or not, or conscious of it.
You hear that number, and you hear things like 82% of people believe that robots can support their career better than humans. And it's like, really?
Yeah, robots? I know. It took me a moment to think about that.
And yet, think about it. How often, do you drive anymore without using Waze or Google Maps, right? How often are we asking, Siri or Alexa to, play music, and it picks for us, and it's fine tuning what it's offering because of the different selections we're making, or on our streaming channels, right? The recommendations are guiding us to how we spend our hours on the days and weekends that we're watching TV. So robots are largely driving a lot of our interactions today. And isn't it time that starts to happen in the workplace, that consumer intelligence, that consumer technology starts driving us to better results and interactions at work? I think it's long past time.
Yeah, and people aren't going to stand for it anymore. As you mentioned, we already get it from a consumer perspective. You mentioned so many versions, right? But we don't do this for our employees, which is crazy. We do it for our customers too, but we don't do it for our employees. So creating that customized employee experience, which is tailored around each individual. There's no longer this one size fits all model. And we've seen that break open over the last 18 months, and people have different circumstances. Some people are at home looking after their kids, some people are single, some people, the younger generation don't really care too much about pension contributions. They want other types of benefits at that age. And companies are now having to use technology to facilitate that.
Yeah. I was talking with an organization, one of our customers yesterday. They were thinking about how do they improve the employee sentiment in the organization, as it is everywhere. There's high turnover. There's a lot of burnout. People feeling overextended, a lot of irritation with their employers. And so this customer was thinking, how can we improve things? Shall we put in a new benefit, or shall we, do various things? And the CHRO, listening to all these, various executives and leader talk, she's like, how about we start by asking, right? And that's one of the... It's
so obvious sometimes. We assume we know.
Concept. Right?
What a crazy idea. Yeah.
And that's what our survey showed, is that employees are fed up with the employers not listening to them. But how can you listen to your employees if you're not asking them questions? And so one of the areas that, I think technology can start immediately to help is by helping bring the voice of the employee forward, right? Understand what is needed, what's necessary, et cetera. And to close on that story, so at this other customer, all these ideas of key benefits and different activities, they ended up asking the employees, what they wanted? They wanted more money, of course, because it's now super competitive out there, and all these various bonuses and things. But even more importantly, they wanted their PTO back, because when the pandemic started, to help reduce furloughs and layoffs, they said, hey, why don't you, use some of your PTO and get really, much lesser pay, but use some PTO. And, people lost a week or more. And that was the one thing they wanted back.
Yeah.
So they took their budget, instead of putting in some program that they were going to tell their employees that was a good thing, they listened to their employees, gave them some PTO back, small raise, whole big difference. And it really connected, helped them feel more connected to the company, and that the company was actually caring and listening to them. And that's the first step, is if we're going to improve experience and retention, right? It's one thing to hire and bring people in, but we have to retain them. We have to start a conversation. So listening and taking action is the first step.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was interviewing a CHRO yesterday, and I was like, what is your biggest challenge right now? And she was like, let me give you an analogy, Chris, kind of a long analogy, more of a story, should I say. She was like, for years, HR has always been told HR needs to understand the business, right? You need to know your numbers. You need to know, that's right. And whenever I ask HR leaders about what advice do you give to junior HR leaders, they're like, understand the business, your numbers, etc. She says, my biggest problem, Chris, is I need to teach our leaders, our managers, and our executive team to understand the people. So it was a complete flip. It's like HR now understands the business. We understand the business, the numbers, etc., and the customers, but the business still doesn't understand our people. And that was the biggest challenge. It kind of goes exactly to your point. You're saying everyone's assuming they know the answers and what employees want, rather than actually listening and asking questions.
Yeah. I want to say the survey, again, extensive results, but fundamentally it showed us that people around the globe feel disconnected. They feel disconnected from work, from their careers. They feel disconnected from their friends and family. They feel disconnected from themselves. I mean, let that sink in. You feel disconnected from yourself, right? You feel that you've lost control of all of that. As employers, as organizations, we need to bring empathy to the table and understand that fundamentally people are burned out. They've reprioritized, as we said, what success means, and they want to come back. They want to do good, but they need to feel that empathy. They need to feel that they're being listened to, and they need to have that new set of priorities responded to. And so to your point of, understanding the people, I think our survey will help them get a sense of where people are, but that listening and taking action is really important. And then once they're in, how do you help people connect to others and understand what are the opportunities to grow their skills and their careers? Because what people found during the pandemic, they had jobs, they had these positions, and a lot of them went away. Jobs went away permanently. New ones were created. And so jobs and positions go, but skills remain, right? At the core of that is about having the right skills for the needs of the organization. And those needs are changing. We saw a whole bunch of restaurants that went from the skill set of meeting people face to face and providing service and calculating the bills, etc., to delivering, ordering through apps and delivering in your car, etc. So a different skill set. I know that's a really basic example, but it's one of how industry shifted. We saw people moving from the airline industry to healthcare, different some transferable skills, of course, but the new ones. So the focus now, as we're coming into this return to the work era, is really ensuring that we're helping people understand the skills that are needed and connecting them to where those skills can be developed. And most importantly, what development of those skills is going to mean as far as career paths. And they may not be the same career paths that they're currently thinking of, but entirely new ones. And this is where artificial intelligence and technology can really come into play to help uncover inferred skills and to make connections that are not the linear connections that you would expect, but those new opportunities that excite people and help help them again see that there are more possibilities and potential within your organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like in our survey, when people say they're looking for AI to help guide them, it's because they know AI is going to make those really kind of magical connections that maybe a human won't traditionally think of outside of the traditional career ladder experience.
Yeah.
Understanding the people, to your point, super important.
Yeah. What have you seen in terms of the uptake of AI in organizations, and what are some of the barriers to adoption?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to get into a little bit. I just got off a call before this, right, where we were talking about AI and human capital management technologies. And I was asking, all right, who's adopted it, in your organization? And a lot of people were excited about what they had adopted, but it turned out it's not really AI, it's robotic process automation.
Yeah.
Right. So whether it's a digital assistant where the intents are pre-mapped, or whether it's avoiding approvals, just and automating that at certain levels, et cetera. And that's super important. I think that's a first step in using technology to reduce frustration and fatigue and irritation and all of that. But artificial intelligence really starts coming in when it's able to make suggestions, to guide you in paths that are not necessarily pre-mapped, to make inference. I mentioned the use of skills, and to say, yes, I see you've got this collection of 100 skills, but because we understand, that a skill defined this way can be defined these 10 other ways, and that these are also skills you have, and they're related to these, you probably have more like 350 skills, and we can better match you now to opportunities because we have a better picture. So that's really what AI is in organizations. So as far as adoption, it's definitely on the rise, but I would say we're still very early in the market. There is a plethora of technologies out in the market, and I'm talking from an employer perspective, managing people, because we certainly have AI and finance and supply chain and other areas, but specific to managing people, we're just starting to leverage it. So recruiting is probably the biggest area where we're starting to see AI being applied. And I mean true intelligent, artificial or adaptable intelligence, the way that we're able to connect candidates to job far beyond the traditional keyword search, to say, great, I see you've applied for this job, and because we know about you and jobs, there's actually these other things that you may be interested that you hadn't even considered, right? That's where the AI starts coming in, or guiding the recruiter when they're writing the job description, suggesting terms and job titles and skills and things that, again, they wouldn't have traditionally thought about, but using the intelligence of deep data mining, et cetera, to bring new insights forward. So recruiting probably the most penetrated, but overall still very early. And I think the barriers, there's a few. In some cases, it's cost. There can be significant costs associated with the apps that are built very bespoke for these purposes, right? A recruiting app, a talent opportunity marketplace, that's got some particular AI and is siloed. The cost can be high, and the very siloed nature of those applications can also be a barrier, because it's great, to have this intelligence in this system, but then potentially it breaks down as you become an employer, as you move from a candidate to employee. You go from a super smart system to potentially less smart, more friction. It's a different, a disconnect, right, for the individual that can cause a system. Or you're focused in a particular opportunity marketplace area, maybe an internal marketplace. But again, if that's the only place that AI is used, there are disconnects throughout the rest of the entire system. So, certainly our approach at Oracle is a pervasive one, but we have found that those siloed approaches, fear about not trusting the AI, is also a barrier. So why did the AI make this recommendation? Why did it connect this person to this job? Can I trust that that's a good match? Is this recommendation coming to me? Can I trust it? What's driving that? So I think fear of AI caused by a lack of transparency in how the AI works is another barrier. There's actually quite a few as we keep drilling into it. I think it's a fresh, young area, and we're as we explore and look at the adoption and get feedback, you'll start seeing more transparency in communication, more transparency in what's in the big black box of skills and how do I manipulate it, et cetera. It's kind of a whole new frontier out there that we're exploring as an industry, but it's exciting because it's growing really fast.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was about to say, it's very exciting, but I think the problem for many of our audience is it's a minefield. There's so much happening. It's coming out. They're like, Chris, every day there's another email in my inbox, another phone call from someone claiming they're going to solve all my problems, and it's hard for them to see through all the new shiny objects and figure out, what are the questions I should be answering, what are the considerations, how do I prioritize my tech investments, so that's a big challenge.
Oh, you've hit it spot on. In fact, when you were talking, the phrase "shiny objects" came to my mind as well. There's so much. I mean, and this can be a very sexy environment of our AI and how it can work and bring predictions and recommendations. But the question is it really adding value? Is this really something that will benefit from artificial intelligence, or is standard RPA or human intervention even better? And I see a lot of technology companies throwing AI at pretty much everything because that's the new
sounds
trend,
good, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So companies are asking, is this the right area of investment? We want to make sure if a robot is going to make decisions or make predictions, we need to trust and understand what's happening under the covers. We need to trust those algorithms. And so, those who are taking it seriously are starting to put in place governance boards, to evaluate the impact of AI, to ensure that it's ethical, right? That it's not introducing bias inadvertently, that the results really are driving better, success in the business and not taking them on some side path. So lots of shiny, exciting new objects, but where do we focus as a company? It's a hard one, I think, for many to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Where's their priority? Where are they going to get the best bang for their buck?
Yeah, well, I think you just hit the nail on the head just in that last comment that you made. You have to start with the business case, right? What are we trying to solve? And a lot of things you might be trying to solve doesn't require AI, and there may be others that do, and then you kind of got to start there and work your way back, as opposed to latching on to these shiny tools and technologies and then trying to figure out, actually now how can we use them? I see many companies taking that approach and failing very fast.
I do think that one of I've mentioned recruiting as being, one of the first to adopt AI, and the way that AI is manifesting in these recruiting applications does oftentimes have a focus on understanding the skills of individuals and understanding the skills that are required for a particular function in a business. And when you bring that mindset into understanding the skills that will be developed by taking certain learning, or the skills that will guide you on a particular career path, the skills that will be gained from a learning catalog, right? That focus on skills and the fact that skills become out of date, about every 4 or 5 years, they're constantly refreshing. Who was hiring a data scientist 10 years ago? And now there's, new
can't get one.
Now you can't. And we're hiring, for a data ethicist now, right? And that wasn't the ethics of data science, wasn't really a big thing commonly as it is, 5 years ago. So if companies are asking, where should I focus on AI? And I'm talking now beyond the robotic process automation. I would say clearly the skills. And again, our research, to come back to that, echoes that. People feel that they don't know what opportunities they have in their organization, and they don't trust their managers to give them the full point of view. So there is capability in the market today where we can start providing that advice. We can start connecting people to career ambassadors that will help guide them and help them understand what developing a skill means, and give them that that hope and plan more.
And empowering them, right? You're empowering them.
Reconnecting, letting them take control of their future. And, there's nothing wrong to saying, I want to be in the driver's seat of my own career. I want to be in control of my future. And I think AI, things like our dynamic skills and a focus on skills and connecting people to opportunities is exactly the kind of robotic support that people are saying they're looking for. So lots of shiny objects, but I hope that organizations are kind of stepping back saying, we need to hire. We are facing the great resignation. So attracting people is a huge challenge. We understand their mindset has shifted. We have to be really responsive to their needs. And if we bring you into our organization, one of our value propositions to you as an individual is we're going to help you understand what you need to do and grow and give you the tools to do all that in ways that were never possible or even imagined before. That kind of value proposition is going to help you attract and retain the talent. And that's a big challenge for us today.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll save some for the report, Yvette.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
I'm joking. I'm literally joking. But before
you can tell I'm passionate about it.
No. I'm only joking. But before I let you go, what we've covered so much, but what would be sort of a parting piece of advice you'd give to all of the HR leaders that are listening?
We've kind of hit the highlights here. HR leaders, first and foremost, need to bring empathy into the culture of the organization. It has been a long 19, 20 months. People are really suffering and their mindset has shifted. They, this great resignation is fueled by the Great Awakening, right? People have woken up and said, I've got a new sense of what I want. Success now looks different. HR leaders, we need to understand that, bring empathy, and really ensure we're focusing on employees and putting them at the center of all of our business designs. And where you go from there, using technology, designing your processes, you decide what's important for your organization, but always keep employees at the center of that and help give them control of their future. Let them take control back of their careers and their futures. Amazing.
And then last question, where can people connect with you personally if they want to reach out and say hello?
Sure. So you can reach me through LinkedIn. I'm very active on that platform. And, also
probably best to just do that.
Yeah. I think LinkedIn is the best.
Yeah. Yep. And for everyone listening, if you haven't already realized, if you click the link below, you can access the report right now and grab a copy of it, and make sure you share it with all of your HR colleagues as well. Super fascinating as well. And there'll also be a link to connect with Yvette on LinkedIn below as well. But apart from that, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. I've really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you, Chris. I enjoyed it too.